Welcome back to Global War 1939. Just finished off round four, so let's take a look here. But before we get to round four, I do want to say I got my new shipment in today. So we got a bunch of new units for select countries. For the most part, these were the units that I was missing out of the game. So I wasn't able to purchase them and actually use them for the countries, but now we have them. So we got another German tank. I was only had four different sculpts, so now we got our fifth. So before I was using this as the Mark V, but now I'm going to use this as the Mark V, and then rightfully so, I'll use this as the Tiger tank for the Germans. These pieces here they weren't available in black. And I was impatient and unwilling to wait until they got more from the store. So I went ahead with gray, which is fine. It's kind of a throwback to 1984. So this is the Hummel SP Artillery. So it's cost 4, move a 2, attack and defense 2 dice at 2 or less. So not too bad. And this is the Sturmkistitz 3. So cost 6, attack 7, defend 4, movement of 2. So that's pretty decent. And we got some airborne for the Russians and airborne for the Japanese. Now, the Russians and the Italians both only have an airborne limit of 2 each. So this is pretty close to the color for the Italians. So I'm going to just split these up and give two to the Russians, 2 to the Italians. It is close enough that you can get away with that. And these will be for the Japanese. And all these units down here, I never had any cavalry sculpts. And I don't know how I felt about having horses on the map, so I decided to go with trucks. So these will represent all the cavalry. These will be for the Chinese and the UK. So the Chinese do start with 3. As they get killed off, then they'll just go in the pool for the British. I chose the celery color because the beige wasn't available either. And again, I wasn't willing to wait. But I already had a couple units. The airborne for the British, I was using the color celery. So go with celery with these. So it's kind of a mixed colors there, which is fine. So this will serve well. And I tried to get trucks with wheels to represent the cavalry, and basically vehicles with the half track or the tank tracks. Trucks will be the mechanized. And this will be for the Germans. Now, this doesn't have truck wheels. It does have a track, which is fine. It still has the presence of a truck, so I'll use that for the cavalry. These will be for the Russians, Japanese, and then for the Italians, they never had a truck sculpt available to buy that only had wheels, only had the tracks. So I think I'm going to switch these around. Instead of this being the mechanized you get from 1940, I'll use that as the cavalry and this as the mechs. Piece count wise, I have 6 of these and 5 of these now. So I've been managing extremely well with 6, so I can't see any problems with switching that out. These would be my Italian mechs. It's not the exact same color, but it's close enough. You can get away with that. And we got some more stickers. So my options were, because these tokens here that you get from 1940, I never had enough. So there's a couple places on the map that don't have them that should. Like this territory here, all the Germans' territory is supposed to have air bases. I've opted to not place them down and just use my memory that they do have air bases. And there's a couple more spots on the map. Like down here is supposed to be a naval base, but this barely gets used maybe once every couple of games. So so to put in places that I know that will require them, that will use them. And then places like this where I'd never had enough air bases, I just used to flip a token upside down on the black side. So I would remember that there's air base there. But now I can switch all that out. I do have the stickers. So it's either opt to get 2 sheets of stickers at $2.50 each, or buy another copy of 1940 second edition. But that would be a lot more expensive, and then I'll be stuck with a vastly bunch of sculpts that I'll never use, as the boxes that I have been suit me quite well, and I've never ran out of sculpt. And then the HPG has been kind enough to gift me these pieces here. I believe it was 3, maybe 4 months ago. They put out a YouTube video that they had a bunch of promo items still available. So if you did a $25 purchase, they would give you a free, or they would gift you one of their promotions that they had available. So I got these came as well. So these are pretty cool. I'm not sure how I'm going to utilize these in the game, but they are very cool, and they're all double-sided. Right, so you got Air Force, Army Reserve, NASA. This is the Navy, Air Guard, Marines, National Guard. This is the Coast Guard, U.S. Army. So would have been cool to see one of these with a maple leaf, but here we are. But these are pretty cool. Not sure how I'm going to use them, but we will see. Maybe I would suspect Captain G might have a better use for these in his 1985 game. Anyways, on to turn 4. All right, so now for turn 4, the Germans are all really prepped up now. They are good to go for the assault into Moscow. They just needed this last turn to do some finalizing of prep. So in Romania, right now we got this stack. We got 3 heavy artillery, 6 artillery, 3 SS infantry, 4 SS mechs, 1 regular mech, 3 medium tanks, and 35 infantry. And then in Romania, ready to jump in with them, we have 11 medium tanks, 3 mechanized, and 4 Mark IVs. And they will also be joined by the force here in Bulgaria, medium tank, 2 SS mechs, and another artillery. I have a plan for that airborne, so that's not going to move. They're going to wait on the air transport. That's currently up in Finland. It will make its way down to Bulgaria this turn, and then the following turn we'll make an airdrop in one of these spaces. Yeah. So that's the plan for him. Or I might just hold him out, because we're only allowed 3 airborne, and I already got 1, 2, 3. Or I might hold him off here and fly him down to Cairo if that ever does fall to get the bonus. So we'll see. Or I can just, air transport a regular infantry on the non-combat phase. That'll probably make more sense. We landed 3 more infantry in Paris. So this is coming along okay. Still not what I want it to be. But most of our attention is towards the Russians. And then in Poland, we got a couple medium tanks, mechanized, 3 infantry. We got 2 more infantry and a medium tank there. I actually have plans for these 3 units. You're gonna jump on the transports, and they'll probably make their way up in this region somewhere. As for the Russians, Finland, the Russians did attack Finland the previous turn, and then their infantry corps got decimated, leaving themselves with 3 light tanks, a KV-2, and artillery. The Germans seen an opportunity to counterattack using their transports, an airborne unit. They already had infantry surviving in Finland, so that joined the battle. And they also brought up a couple of their planes and their medium bombers, which just flew back to Western Germany, able to take out those German tanks, which was kind of devastating to them because the Russians, that was about 40% of their tank corps. So they only got 8 tanks, left on the map. They got light tank, KV-2, 3 medium, 2 more KV-2s, and another light tank. So they're kind of thin there as they're kind of hunkering down and getting ready for a defensive war. But they still want some offensive capabilities if or when opportunity arises. So we'll see how all that plays out. But the biggest problem with this counterattack, the whole point of Russia going in here, expending all those units, they did lose quite a bit. I'm not sure if it was really worth it. But now with this, like, the whole point of going in there was to prevent a northern invasion by the Germans and forcing them to focus in the south. But now with this, it seems, and utilizing a couple more transports, the northern assault is still on, and the Russians don't really have a lot to defend. They got a rocket, light tank, 4 infantry. They did bring in a fair amount of their fighters for defense of Leningrad, but this whole northern attack kind of got negated. So seems to be working out pretty well. We'll see how the rest of those battles play out. For the Italians, they didn't really purchase a lot of land-based units. They did go ahead and get themselves another battleship. So slowly, if they can manage, even if they're building 1 warship a turn, which is good, especially their economy is pretty small. They do need to focus on their army units to start taking land, to build more money. Did bring down another infantry in the non-combat phase utilizing their air transport. They took the light tank they used in this battle, brought it back to mainland Italy, and they'll be able to pick up these 3 infantry on these 2 transports. I'm kind of tossed up on their next course of action. They can certainly drop them off here in northern Algeria and then assault Morocco on the following turn, and then of course come down and grab that dollar, and then set up the forces here as a defense for if or when the Americans jump down. Or the second course of action, take those 2 transports, the 2 transports in this fleet here, take some units out of Africa, and then come and take Syria and then Iraq, activate that before the turn 7 flip over. And then that will probably open up the rest of the Middle East. So we'll see, kind of torn. This is like a guarantee. This comes with some risk, but high reward. So we'll see what they decide. Pretty much whatever the British do will dictate this play. So we will see. For the British in Africa, again, just bunkering down, building up. They pretty much got everyone in Cairo now. So they got a light tank, 4 mediums, heavy artillery fighter, 3 commandos, an airborne, an Australia infantry, and quite a number of regular infantry. So 9 regular infantry. So they'll certainly be bolstering this up for the next couple turns. And then they got some more reinforcements coming down from South Africa. And these transport, believe it or not, has been a great help of getting guys up quicker, because otherwise they just have to move one space at a time. For this FEC fleet here, they did join up with the starting British fleet down here on the east coast of Africa. So they're now joined up. They kind of sailed away from India because the last couple of games I just left them in C Zone 68. The Japanese came in, destroyed them, and then went back to the Pacific. It was little effort on the Japanese part, and then India was without a fleet for the remainder of the game. But backed them up a little bit with their hopes where the Japanese would chase them, and then the Japanese would be by Africa, way out of position from the Pacific. But unfortunately, they didn't take the bait, and they decided to go back. The Japanese started seeing how closely the Americans were to their $80 goal of joining the war. So they opted to leave the FEC fleet alone and sail back towards the Americans. As for FEC, they took all their units they had in this territory, moved them over, so they are pretty stacked here. Definitely a big stalemate between both nations. So basically, each one is just waiting to see who attacks who first, knowing that, you know, most of these two armies are made up of mostly infantry, and infantry has a massive bonus compared to attacking. They defend on a 4 as opposed to attacking on a 2. So we will see. The only problem here is the Japanese can't wait too long because the FEC can outproduce them unless the Japanese are ferrying guys. Oh my goodness. Oh man. That's the first time that's happened. All right, fixed. Sorry about that. Yeah, so the FEC can supply much quicker because FEC can put 3 guys here, 3 guys here. Britain can put a guy here. The Japanese can only supply 3 unless they're bringing guys down from their home islands, which they haven't really been doing. So the Japanese might want to strike before it's too late, before they get overwhelmed. For the Chinese, they did go into a couple of major assaults. They attacked the Japanese on 3. This was a walk-in, big battle here, as the Japanese got enveloped with these 3 territories, just came in. It was costly on the Japanese, or the Chinese, sorry. They did lose 5 or 6 infantry, but they did give their fighter some experience. And the Japanese, on their turn, attacked the Communist China in both these territories. The Japanese here was only left with 2 infantry, 2 veteran infantry, actually. So the Chinese took advantage of that, taking out 2 of those special units that you can't repurchase. Now, I would still imagine the Japanese will counter the Chinese counter, retake this territory. That's fine. But the Chinese did want to get rid of those veterans. And for the Japanese did see the Americans were getting extremely close to their dollar figure. They were sitting at 77 of 80. One more die roll, they would have got it. So they decided just to go and attack the Philippines. They did, I'm not sure if it was a waste. They did use their sneak attack to get their 35 bonus. However, if they never used their sneak attack against this, then they wouldn't have had an opportunity to use it anyways, because they were already at war with FEC, they're at war with China, they're at war with Australia. So if they didn't use their sneak attack against the Philippines, well, they kind of would have thrown away $35. So in my mind, that was more important than trying to get a big battle or set up a big battle, which is pretty hard to do, to bait your opponents into making foolish mistakes. So took out the Philippines, no problem. Guam was a walk-on, and they did capture this last Dutch island. So the only one left now is New Guinea. And then, of course, recapture Carolina Islands. There's only one artillery there, 2 infantry here each. So it's not too big of a threat, but it still needs to be taken out. The Australians did have their fleet up here a couple turns ago, but they've been slowly backing up. The Japanese fleet has been getting in range of striking, knowing that the Australians didn't really weren't really able to contend with the Japanese fleet. So the plan for FEC and the Australians, they're going to bring their fleets back, keep them out of range, let the Japanese and the Americans fight it out. With big fleets like this, you know you're going to incur a lot of casualties. A lot of ships are going to be sunk. You're going to be left with a skeleton of what you had. So then that's when these guys and these guys will jump in, rush into the Pacific as fast as possible, put pressure on the Japanese as they're trying to rebuild their fleet, giving time for the Americans to rebuild. So if the Japanese have to rebuild, the Americans have to rebuild, but the Japanese got to fight battles against this fleet and that fleet. The Americans don't. So that should give the advantage to them. And then they'll should be able to start taking some of these islands back, cutting down on the income of the Japanese, which will be even harder for them to rebuild their fleet. So that's kind of the plan for the Allies in the Pacific. Unless the Japanese just says, no, we're going to take all this out before they engage the Americans. But that could give the Americans plenty of opportunity to sail around, start taking islands without any threat, because the Japanese fleet here will be out of position. They do kind of have to stick within this region of the map to keep the Americans at bay, because obviously they are more of a threat than Australia and FEC in the water. And now that the Americans are in the war, all their production facilities went from minors up to majors. You get all three of your factories upgraded for free. So because of their production limits increasing by 7 for each factory, they did drop a bunch of transports, and their transports get cheaper once they're in the war. So they just dropped a bunch all at once, a bunch of new Marines, and they got all 3 of their heavy artillery out, and a few infantry as well. They did go ahead and activate Mexico. Their plan was to get Brazil activated, get those infantry. I believe you get 4 infantry. You do get a couple ships, a coastal battleship, and another transport. They're going to bring down 1 or 2 transports and activate this. However, they seen the German fleet still here. The British did send down their 4 destroyers and a cruiser to chase these guys off, so the Americans can activate Brazil without being threatened by German U-boats and a cruiser. And of course, the British do want to get these ships out of here so they can stop being convoyed. It is only $2, but it does add up. So they want to get rid of these vessels as fast as they can. And then you're like, well, why didn't the Americans just come down with some support? Well, they only have a destroyer, a sub, and a torpedo boat destroyer. So they don't really feel comfortable with this lurking around. So they'll just wait for the British to clear those ships out. Shouldn't be much trouble for this. And then the British did keep behind a battleship and a couple of destroyers to protect their current transport fleet. And the Americans are kind of weak warship-wise here because they've been putting everything in the Pacific, as naval conflict is more important there than in the Atlantic. All right. All right, so we're just going to play out the next turn, and then this is when Russia should be in the war. It is kind of funny, though, that the Americans are in the conflict before the Russians are. Yes. Anyways, Well, thank you for watching and have yourself a great day.